You guys want to know something funny? I'm going to upload this video, and within a matter of minutes, it'll have more views than Concord has concurrent players. Bazinga. Concord is probably the biggest AAA embarrassment since Redfall, and I say that with some level of glee, the same way I said it about Redfall, because there's nothing I love more than seeing an arrogant group of AAA developers and publishers get exactly what they deserve, more so the publishers, less the developers. But I think you get the point I'm making. Concord was never going to succeed. It's a game that's not only like 6 years too late, but I would honestly argue that it wouldn't have succeeded even if it did manage to jump on the hero shooter bandwagon in a reasonable amount of time. A $40 hero shooter with less content than a lot of free-to-play PvP shooters, all with some of the least appealing character designs and least interesting gameplay mechanics of all time. This really is not a surprising failure. And it's extra hilarious when you consider just how much kid glove handling this game has gotten from the games media over the last few months. Let's just go through some of the major headlines from outlets trying to run damage control for this game for absolutely no reason. I mean, PC Gamer yesterday tweeted out an article called "Players seem to like Concord, but its $40 price tag has led to a tepid first weekend on PC." Ah yes, the first weekend is tepid. Tepid is what it is. Tepid meaning lukewarm, by the way, or showing little enthusiasm, implying that these Steam numbers reflect any enthusiasm. PC Games N said, "Despite what we all expected, Concord is off to a pretty strong start." Ah yes, a strong start, PC Games N. Thank you for your stunning insight. Then there was someone at IGN who tweeted out, "Man, Concord really is scratching that multiplayer shooter itch I've had for a while. Everything is designed immaculately, and each design choice feels deliberate, from character kits to map layouts. If you're looking for a new shooter that values you squatting up or running solo, this is it." Gets a response from someone named Forrest who says, "It's not too late to delete this." And then the community lead IGN journalist says, "Not too late to become a decent human being. You're not a decent human being if you don't like Concord." Thank you, IGN journalist. I sure do wonder why people don't trust games media anymore. There was also a very strange thing going on with one of the devs, or alleged devs. This person seems to have been one of the people who worked on Concord, and they, were hiding tweets that were critical of them and telling people to pay them $8 to unhide them. And they also apparently said talentless freaks are the people who don't like their game and aren't playing it. This is what happens when chronically online Overwatch players get to design a game. And then on top of all this, Valve recently officially confirmed their own upcoming hero shooter, and the flippin' playtest is putting up numbers like this. And Overwatch, despite being one of the most hated games in the universe, is still putting up Steam numbers like this. So this isn't a genre problem. This is a Concord problem. This is a Sony tried to charge $40 for an elaborate Destiny 2 mod problem. And I don't want to make it sound like this is a completely terrible game, because the general consensus of Concord seems to be that the game itself is perfectly functional and perfectly competent. It's just selling something that nobody wants to buy, especially not at $40. Destiny 2 is free. Overwatch is free. Team Fortress is free. Nobody is paying 40 smackaroos for Concord. That's not to say Concord is an objectively bad, all-around terrible game, but it is saying that Concord is completely and utterly ununique, and the fact that Sony is trying to charge $40 for it should be insulting to anyone who considers them a fan of Sony as a publisher. PlayStation has been fucking barren when it comes to first-party games this generation, and then this is how they break the silence. They canceled the Spider-Man multiplayer game, they shut down the Last of Us multiplayer game, but they kept this going for $40. $40 for an inferior version of a game that a dozen other companies were already giving you for free. It's arrogant, it's out of touch, and it's so sweet to see it fail this spectacularly, because it means Sony is going to be forced to get serious about their first-party output again. And that's ultimately a good thing no matter what platform you play on. Sony being the console market leader and now also being forced to take their first-party output more seriously, that benefits everyone. Concord's failure, if you are a gamer, is a good thing for the future. But that kind of level-headed insight isn't why you're watching the video now, is it? That's not why you clicked that spicy title. Most of the PlayStation dudes are just taking the L here, and hats off to you guys for doing so, genuinely. I make fun of PlayStation guys a lot, but most of the PlayStation diehards here, we're just taking the L and moving on, and again, genuine props for you for doing so, because if you want your favorite company to get better, you have to be willing to call them out and not support bad practices. practices, and props to those of you in the hardcore PlayStation camp who are refusing to get on board with Concord. But some of you are really trying your best to be cheerleaders for this game, and I just have to point and laugh because this is probably the most blatant example of following logos over games I think I've ever seen, at least since Redfall. Like, the Concord Defense Force is on the same level of pointlessness as the Redfall Defense Force was, which means it's the same level of hilarious for people on the outside like me. So let me share with you some of my favorites from over the weekend. Starting with Drake Not That One says, "Don't make me tap the sign, Concord haters," and has the Kirby meme of the hating popular things doesn't make you an interesting person. But also, given the fact that Concord is not even close to being a popular thing, I'm really not sure what the point you're trying to make here is. Like, if you want to argue that people are just hating on the popular thing because it's the popular thing, then okay, but that would require Concord to be a popular thing. Wishful thinking here. Passive Prophet says, "I'm gonna need Xbox fans to keep Concord out of their mouths for real," and then shares a Steam chart screenshot of Halo Infinite, which, despite having very low and, like, frankly, embarrassing player counts for a first-party Microsoft game on PC, like, I'm not gonna deny that Halo Infinite's Steam numbers are pretty bad, but also, zoom in on that Steam chart here, and you'll see that the example you gave of Halo Infinite being bad, and that's, you know, Xbox fans not being allowed to make fun of Concord because of Halo Infinite's numbers, if you zoom right in there, you'll see that Halo Infinite's 24-hour peak count is still over 4,000 people. Concord's peak concurrent player count is 660 people. I don't think this is the zinger you were hoping it would be. KeyMac GT7 PS5 says, "I'm glad the Xbox and PC dorks are sharing Steam numbers so often and calling games a failure. Where were you for these games?" Then he shows screenshots of Forza Motorsport, Senua's Sacrifice, Redfall, and Gears 5. Alright, since you want to keep going with the Steam chart argument, let's just go down the list here. Here's the Steam charts for Redfall. Here's the Steam charts for Hellblade. Here's the Steam charts for Forza. Here's the Steam charts for Gears 5. One thing you'll notice about all 5 of these games is that in all 4 cases, the peak player count is way higher, like several magnitudes higher than Concord's player count. Also, all 5 of these games have been available on PC Game Pass from day 1, and PC Game Pass is not hosted on Steam. So even though all 4 of these games were available day 1 on Game Pass, there were still enough people buying them on Steam to get concurrent player count several orders of magnitude higher than Concord can get in its opening weekend on PC with no subscription option, so the only place to go for Concord on PC is to buy a proper copy on Steam. And this is the way you frame it. This is your wording. Where were you for these games? They were there way more than you were there for Concord. I don't know what you're trying to say. Hello, I'm interrupting this video to remind you that this channel is sponsored by 4D Gaming. If you would like a really nice mousepad, go to 4dgaming.com and use code Joe for a discount. This channel is also sponsored by Glitch Energy. It's basically G Fuel, but better, so go to Glitch Energy and use code Joe for a discount. Thank you for letting me interrupt your content. I'll let you keep watching it now. Jacob quote tweets the news that Valve's Deadlock has been officially revealed and says, let's see if that hero shooter energy carries over from all you Concord haters. Reminder that this is what Deadlock's Steam numbers look like right now. For a playtest, again, I'm not sure what point you're trying to make. People really are just saying anything now. You know what I mean? People really are just saying whatever. Like, they see the PlayStation logo on the box, they see that it's not doing well, and they immediately are like, well, everyone else is just wrong. I mean, Concord's not doing well, but I mean, good luck, Valve, on your hero shooter. Meanwhile, Valve's hero shooter is pulling numbers like this, and Concord is sitting like this in its official launch weekend. Like, are you alive? What is this comparison? Here's one you probably saw, because it went a little viral. It says, with regards to Concord, take a moment to remember that there are real people who for years have poured their heart and soul into making something to entertain you. It's all laughs, jokes, and told you so today, but tomorrow it'll be more remakes, safe sequels, and the lack of new IPs or any risks being taken. I'll always root for new games to succeed. Several things wrong here. First of all, you're implying that if we want games to be like new and fresh and entertaining, then we have to support Concord because it's a new IP. But then in the same breath, you say that if we don't support Concord, then there's going to be more games where no risks are being taken. My boy, Concord failed because no risks were taken. It doesn't matter that it's a new IP. It's completely unoriginal and unasked for. Also, hot take, there's nothing wrong with safe sequels. Like, if a game comes out and a lot of people like it, there's nothing wrong with making a safe sequel to it. I agree with you that the number of remakes and reboots can be frustrating, but if we're being honest here, Concord offers much less than most of those remakes and safe sequels do. Because remakes and safe sequels are banking off people's established, desire for more content in a certain franchise. Concord appeals to, evidently, nobody, because it offers nothing. And what would happen if we did support Concord? You know what I mean? What if we did all go out and buy Concord and crank player counts on Concord? Then what would happen? It would be the exact same thing that happened after Overwatch, where now, all of a sudden, we're getting a whole bunch of paid multiplayer-only games, which I thought we were done with that. This idea that just because people worked on it and people really cared about it, that we have to support it, we have to make sure it succeeds. No, we do not. That's exactly how we get more shit like Concord, which evidently nobody wants. Here's some fun coping. Derek Strickland says, Concord is selling much, much better on the PlayStation Store than Steam. Data reveals Concord is number 511 on Steam's bestsellers list, but Firewalk's new shooter sits at number 42 on the PlayStation Store's top sellers list. So you're telling me the game that PlayStation is putting tons of marketing into and is promoting out the butthole can't even crack the top 40 on their own sales list? Also, Steam has way more games than PlayStation does. So of course it's a lower spot. How embarrassing is it that Concord gets all this marketing, all this hype, and then it comes out and it can't even crack the top 40 on PlayStation's own charts? And you're framing this as well, Concord's doing a lot better on PlayStation than Steam. Yeah, because Steam has more games. The game is a complete flop on both platforms. Why are we even attempting to spin this? This makes no sense. Delta says, bro, fucking Pentiment beat Concord in its all-time peak player count. And then he gets a response that says, which one needed another console platform, Lamau? Well, Concord, frankly, should have had another console platform, because maybe then it would have come close to making back 5% of its budget. 8 years of development for this, by the way, which I wonder what happened 8 years ago that inspired Firewalk to start making this game. Oh yeah, that's what happened exactly 8 years ago. Man, they sure did have a super original idea that they just put 8 years of really grinding this incredible original vision into. Definitely had nothing to do with this exactly 8 years ago. Anyways, moving on. Unleashed says, as I predicted, Concord decimated Starfield. 74 user score, over 59 user score. But then when you zoom in here, Concord has a 74 user score after 334 reviews. That's all it could manage, was 334. Meanwhile, Starfield, yes, 59% approval rating after over 102,000 ratings. I know you probably don't understand how math works, but when there are less reviews, it's easier for the review score for the average to be influenced because there are way less reviews. Oh, here we are on a Monday morning, and I'm explaining how averaging works. Oh my god. But then again, like I said earlier, props to the fucking PlayStation guys who aren't buying into this, because Nick Marcial quote tweets Unleashed and says, stop it, bro. We can gracefully take this L and move the fuck on. Concord ain't it. And yeah, Nicola, hats off to you, bud. We disagree on basically everything. Also, congrats on getting married. Genuinely, love is a wonderful thing. Marriage is a wonderful thing. And I like seeing more people fall in love and get married and have happy lives together. Okay, genuine congrats on getting married, Nick. Okay, moving on. Tripster says, yes, Sony had a flop, but at least they're not flopping as hard as Nintendo and Xbox. And then shows the Metacritic pages for Redfall and Endless Ocean Luminous. I've never heard of that in my life. But I mean, we already went over the charts of, even though Redfall was a giant flop, if we're talking sales, at least on Steam, Redfall sold way more than Concord on Steam. We can tell that, meaning that despite Redfall being available on Game Pass from day one, it was still selling more than enough copies to completely destroy Concord Steam charts numbers. Dude, buddy, this ain't it. This just ain't it. Someone named Julian McMara responds to someone talking about Concord and says, honestly, I have tried Concord and I didn't think it was a bad game at all. On the contrary, the game is very entertaining. What happens is that we live in a time where everything becomes political in a crystal generation. And before I can even rip you in half, someone named Paul already ripped you in half and said, talking about a $40 price tag for a live service game that requires internet connection and with no single player is being political, it makes no sense to pay for something which they may close and shut down any time. Think of The Crew, for example. Sorry for being too political, which is something that really bugs me. I hate when people say that this game failed because of political reasons or because of woke reasons. I'm not arguing that those had nothing to do with it, but if you're looking for like the ultimate reason why this game failed, artistic decisions are secondary to the fact that this was a $40 multiplayer only game that offered nothing new or interesting to the people who would be spending money on a multiplayer game and have free to play options. Like, that's all it takes to explain the failure. And again, I'm not even arguing that the design decisions and the creative decisions had no impact, because I'm sure they did. The character designs for this game are fucking atrocious. The gameplay designs for this game are so unoriginal, but its failure, I would argue, is much more attributed to the fact that it's not at all political for people to not want to pay $40 for a multiplayer game they've played a million other times and can play right now from a dozen other sources for no money. Everything else, frankly, comes secondary to that. That's where Sony should have been fixing their shit first. Okay, one more. This one's from the Steam forums. People... Sorry. I love this one. People's jobs are at stake. Well done or medium rare. I get having a little trolling fun. I used to browse B back in 2019, but you guys really need to lock in. There are hundreds, if not thousands of people whose lives depend on this game succeeding. Just food for thought before you gloat. Oh, so apparently it's my responsibility to make sure other people are making a living off of selling products that I didn't want? These people are making a product that I don't want, but it's my responsibility to buy it still, so that way they can have a life instead of them just making something that I wanted to buy and not guilt tripping me for not wanting it. Is this really where we're at now? And like, look, I sympathize. I absolutely sympathize with the developers who had no creative input on this, who were just doing their job and are there for the paycheck. And like just trying to muscle through and get this thing done so they can go back to their families. I absolutely sympathize for that. It's not their fault. But the people making the creative decisions, it is their fault. The people who greenlit this game, it is their fault. People who decided to charge $40 for this game, it's their fault too. So in a way, you're correct. Yes, there are a lot of lower level people, lower level on the food chain at Firewalk or at Sony, who are likely going to get in trouble for this game not doing well, and that's fucked up. But that's also not going to make me buy it, because if I buy it, then what happens? We just keep getting more schlock that nobody wants to buy. You can't guilt trip me into buying this thing. How about nobody buys this game? How about the people making the creative decisions have to answer for their shitty creative decisions? How about the people making the business decisions have to answer for their shitty business decisions? And both of those things will only happen if they do not make profit off of this. And then those people are replaced with people who actually know what the fuck they're doing, and we can all get back on track, and those hundreds, if not thousands of people whose lives depend on this game succeeding can have a good, fruitful career making games that people actually want to buy. Apparently, I'm a massive dick face for believing that. But okay, I'll be the massive dick face. No one should buy this game. No one should support this game. The people who decided to sell it for $40 should be fired. The people who decided to spend 8 years on a game that offers nothing new and nothing original should be fired. The people who were doing all the grunt work should keep their jobs and probably get a raise, because holy shit, you put them through the nonsense as hell ringer for 8 years on this one. And the failure of the game is absolutely not their fault. And I would love it if we could all just get back to playing games that we want to play. Wouldn't that be fun? I would love that. I sure would love that. Anyways, toodles.